Savannah is one of the biggest urban historic districts in the United States. Founded in 1733 by General James Oglethorpe, the city was laid out in a series of 4 wards, each formed around a central square. The squares were for mustering the neighborhood militias. These citizen soldiers initially brought their own weapons from home. Following Oglethorpe's plan, new wards were established as the city grew. Monterey Square was laid out in 1847 to commemorate the 1846 Battle of Monterey of the Mexican-American War, in which a Savannah unit of the Jasper Greens fought. We are now on Jones Street. Perhaps the most charming street in America, was named to honor Major John Jones, who was aide-de-camp to Brigadier General Lachlan McIntosh at the 1779 Siege of Savannah during the Revolutionary War. 17 West Jones Street was built for John M. Williams in 1883. "15 West Jones Street was built for Thomas Holcomb in 1849. Holcomb owned a wholesale grocery business. He was keenly interested in politics and served a term as mayor of Savannah during the Civil War. This home at 11 West Jones Street was built in 1854 for Joseph E. Johnston, a veteran of the Mexican-American War and Seminole Wars. He became a general officer in the Confederate Army. Johnston sold the house in 1860 to fellow Confederate officer Algernon Hartridge.
The Eliza Thompson House at 5 West Jones Street was built in 1847 for Eliza and her husband, Joseph. It's said that their son, James, was killed by a horse in front of the home. The house is now a historic inn, supposedly haunted by James' ghost.
This home at 1 West Jones Street was built for Israel Teft in 1849. Teft, born in Rhode Island in 1794, settled in Savannah in 1821. He was elected cashier of the Bank of the State of Georgia in 1848. This important civic leader, a founder of the Georgia Historical Society, died in 1862.
This home was built for Cornelia Millen in 1851. Cornelia invested in stocks and real estate, and made considerable sums. Unfortunately, most of her stock seemed to be in Confederate enterprises, and her fortunes were held in Confederate money, which was worthless at the end of the war.
John Scudder, originally from Westfield, New Jersey, was a prolific master builder in Savannah. He was married in 1839 in Savannah's First Baptist Church, which his father, Amos, constructed 6 years earlier. In addition to building, he was part owner of the Savannah-Ogeechee Canal. Scudder died after the Civil War in 1869 in Westfield, New Jersey, where his family maintained a family farm. John's father, Amos, born 1779 in Westfield, was credited with building some of the finest edifices in Savannah, as well as rice mills along the Savannah and Ogeechee rivers. These row houses, from 17 to 31 East Jones Street, were built for William Quantock by John Scudder in 1854. We'll now turn the corner and walk to Taylor Street, which was named for Zachary Taylor, general during the Mexican-American War. Taylor later became the 12th President of the United States. These homes, 16 through 32 East Taylor Street, were built for David L. Cohen. Cohen was a Jewish builder from Charleston, South Carolina, the nephew of the notable David Lopez Cohen, Jr. of Charleston. The Purse Thomas buildings were constructed in 1869 and remodeled about 1897. Daniel Purse was a former mayor of Savannah. Thomas served Savannah as a city alderman, member of various committees, including one to build the City Hall, and a member of the Sanitary Commission. To number 12, owned by department store owner B.H. Levy, a fourth floor was added having a mansard roof with faux tile, bold dormers, and curved bay windows faced with marble. This home at 10 East Taylor Street is one of the most elegant in Savannah. More recent owners have included Robert Duffy, president and co-founder of Marc Jacobs International Fashion Label. Two East Taylor Street was built for Hugh M. Comer in 1880. Comer was president of Central of Georgia Railway, co-founder of Bibb Manufacturing Company in Macon, Georgia, president of Savannah Cotton Exchange and Ocean Steamship Company. Jefferson Davis, president of the Confederacy, was a guest in 1886. This home at 4 West Taylor Street was built in 1852 for Nicholas Kruger, scion of a prominent New York family and partner in the law firm of Kruger and Wade. Kruger married the widowed owner of Rice Hope Plantation in South Carolina. As part of his rice plantation, Kruger owned Pennyworth Island, which you can see just west of US 17 as you cross Little Back River into South Carolina.
Don't you love these secret elegant gardens?
Edward G. Wilson had this home built at 10 West Taylor Street in 1852. Edward was married to Ananias Wilson of St. Lucia, West Indies. He compiled an intriguing digest of all the ordinances of the city of Savannah which were in force in 1858. The digest is still in print. This duplex was built for Algernon Hartridge. Hartridge was a cotton merchant and a Confederate lieutenant. He died in 1876. Pallbearers included Confederate Generals Joseph E. Johnston and Henry Jackson. "20 West Taylor Street was built for George S. Gray in 1855. Herman Coleman immigrated from Prussia, married, and came to Savannah in the early 1840s. He worked in the grocery business. Herman gave up the grocery business about 1860 and began farming. His family moved to Tattnall County, Georgia, where he died in 1876. Gordon Street was named for William Gordon, first president of Central of Georgia Railroad. This home was built for Joachim Saucy Jr. in 1870. He was about 35 years old at the time. Saucy, known as John, was a native of Georgia, born in Effingham County, a descendant of Salzburgers and a Confederate veteran. He was one of 12 children, a son of a physician who died of yellow fever in 1854. John died in 1912 and is buried in Savannah's Laurel Grove Cemetery. This handsome duplex was begun in 1879 and completed in 1882 for John M. Williams. Number 17 was the home of Helen Drexel, a character in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, who received guests in her bedroom while she sipped martinis. Charles Barrington King was pastor of the First Presbyterian Church, Savannah. He was instrumental in establishing a Presbyterian congregation in Brunswick, Georgia. Anson and Lazarus Moore immigrated from Bavaria. They were partners in various companies, including dry goods. The Moore brothers also formed the Liberty Manufacturing Company, a real estate brokerage house. In addition, Anson and Lazarus launched the American Manufacturing Company, which made trousers. The Moore brothers were associated with Temple Mikveh Israel on Monterey Square. Noble Hardy was a cotton factor, owner of the N.A. Hardy Company, and served in the Georgia House of Representatives. He was brother of William J. Hardy, former commandant at West Point. His daughter Susan was married to Confederate Brigadier General William W. Kirkland. Hardy died in 1867. His funeral was held at the Independent Presbyterian Church, and he's buried in Bonaventure Cemetery. He was remembered as a man of virtue and high character. Row houses, identical or nearly identical homes lined up in a row, first appeared in Europe in the 16th century and became increasingly popular as populations grew. With the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, people began moving to the cities for work, and row houses provided affordable accommodations. The Scudder brothers saw the opportunity as Savannah grew, so built accordingly. Numbers 11 and 15 East Gordon Street were built for Stephen M. Cubbage and Charles McGill. Note the beautiful Confederate jasmine gracing the stair rail. John C. Rowland served in the Confederate Army at Fort Pulaski. It's believed that Rowland owned a slave named March Haynes, who Rowland hired out as a boat pilot. When the fort fell to Federal troops, Rowland was imprisoned and Haynes was freed. Haynes then used his knowledge of the area's rivers and creeks to ferry escaping slaves to freedom. The home at 21 East Gordon Street was built for James Levy in 1916. 23 East Gordon Street was built for Frederick Groschhout in 1854. Congregation Mikveh Israel, organized in 1735, is one of the oldest Jewish congregations in the nation. This synagogue, designed by Henry G. Harrison, was built in the Gothic Revival style and consecrated in 1878. It is the only Gothic-style synagogue in North America. The Central Monument in Monterey Square honors Count Casimir Pulaski. Pulaski, born in 1745, was a Polish nobleman and military commander. At the suggestion of Benjamin Franklin, Pulaski joined the Continental Army to help in the American Revolution. He distinguished himself in the rank of general and formed the Pulaski Cavalry Legion. The American cavalry, such as it was, needed reforming, so Pulaski set himself about doing so. Consequently, he is known as the father of American cavalry. He served in several important battles, including the battles of Brandywine and Germantown. Pulaski was mortally wounded in 1745 by grapeshot during a charge against British forces. He was taken from the field of battle and carried to a merchant vessel. His burial place is unknown. The ship's commander claimed he was buried at nearby Greenwich Plantation. A skeleton with characteristics similar to Pulaski's was discovered in 1853 at Greenwich and reinterred in this square. Even after DNA testing, historians still disagree. Reverend Charles Rogers was born into a wealthy family at Kilkenny Plantation near Richmond Hill, Georgia, which plantation he owned later. He attended Savannah's Independent Presbyterian Church, sometimes performing pastoral duties during the absence of others. Reverend and Mrs. Rogers lived in the southern half of the building. His daughter, Anna, and husband, Dr. Joseph West, lived in the other half. Rogers died in 1861. The northern half was later owned by historic preservationist Lee Adler. The house was designed by architect John Norris in the Greek Revival style. The handsome ironwork is especially notable. The home at 429 Bull Street was also designed by architect John Norris for Hugh Mercer in 1860, but completed in 1871. General Mercer was the great-great-grandfather of songwriter Johnny Mercer. The house, featured in the novel and film Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, has a colorful history, mostly surrounding its owner, antiques dealer and preservationist Jim Williams. Williams was arrested in 1981 for the murder of Danny Hansford. After 4 trials, Williams was acquitted in 1989. The house now doubles as a residence and museum. "26 East Gaston Street was built for Mills B. Lane Sr., founder of the Citizens and Southern Bank of Georgia. Upon his death, Mills B. Lane Jr. became the bank's president and acquired the home. He was a strong advocate of Savannah's historic preservation. The mansion, overlooking Forsyth Park, now houses Ralston College. 450 Bull Street was built for Edward Molyneux, who was the British consul at Savannah from 1831 to 1863. The building is now home to the exclusive Oglethorpe Club. This magnificent edifice, the Armstrong-Kessler Mansion overlooking Forsyth Park, was built for shipping magnate George Armstrong. The exterior features marble-glazed brick and stone mountain granite. It has been restored to its former beauty by hotelier Richard Kessler. Here's another home designed by architect John S. Norris. Brantley was a Confederate general during the war between the states, serving mostly in the West. He was murdered in 1870 during a family feud. "24 West Gaston, on the northeast corner of Gaston and Whitaker Streets, was built for George S. Gray in 1862. The side porch provides a fine view of nearby Forsyth Park. Here ends our stroll through Monterey Ward. Thanks for watching, y'all. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. You'll find links to background info in our show notes. Visit our store at www.GoGardenNow.com.